Wayward Tempest by Rich Vernadeau. Chapter 1. A blazing full moon hung in dark, smoky sky, casting shadows from the magnolia trees onto the crowd of black faces on the courtyard of the great wind-swept-in plantation. The sadistic slave master stood upon a scaffold and announced, "This vile wench has been charged with insubordination, with attempting to aid and abet a rebellion, and fomenting an insurrection." He pointed at a thin, mulatto-skinned slave girl whose arms were tied up in the air to a flogging pole. Vixuna, the beautiful red-haired Irish mistress of the plantation, marched up the stairs of the scaffold and stepped onto the wooden platform. "I demand that this entire spectacle cease at once." The moon caught a gleam in her fierce, angry Irish eyes. Tempest, the slave master and her former lover, looked into her eyes briefly and then averted his own eyes away from her captivating stare. He knew in his heart that her will would always possess his own and that he was himself a slave to her every wish, command, and desire.
"Untie her at once." The eyes of the slave girl begged for mercy. Tempest untied the ropes from the wrists of the bound girl. "But an example has to be made," he insisted. Vixuna responded, "Unlike you, I do not condone brutality." She shot him a piercing glance that sent a very clear message. He felt intense feelings towards her rekindle inside him. A mixture of lustful desire and resentment at her power over him. Vixuna addressed the slave girl Matilda as Tempest untied her. "You may have the day off from many labor tomorrow to rest up." Matilda bowed slightly and gave Vixuna a thankful glance. She then walked quickly off the wooden platform, her head lowered, down the stairs into the crowd of onlooking slaves below who were wailing and sighing with relief. Vixuna glared at Tempest. "I will not have it said that I am a merciless mistress." Tempest turned and began walking, shaking his head. Vixuna looked down at the sea of black faces and told them, "You may all return to your quarters, now, this little show has ended." Vixuna went down the long, tree-lined pathway to the massive wooden doors of the palatial wind-swept-in mansion, a massive castle-like structure. She pushed open the huge doors and a tall, very dark black man bowed slightly as she entered. "Good evening, Miss Vixuna." She glanced at him and nodded, then walked through to the foyer to the two massive doors of the drawing room. As an instant reflex that appeared almost instinctive, Cardon the servant pushed the doors open for her. "The usual drink, madam?" he asked. Vixuna nodded, then walked to the huge bar and accepted the glass of brandy once it had been poured. She walked to the glowing fireplace and looked at the flames within it and began speaking. "Cardon, do you have any notion what this raging fire brings to my mind? The fragrance of hell, that's what it represents to me. And the faces of my poor subjects outside tonight. What I saw was the preponderance of the disenchanted. And why shouldn't they be disenchanted? And when I looked into Tempest's face, I saw only the flavors of me."